More than 2 years after drawing criticism for becoming too expensive, Malaysia's MM2H residence program is now unveiling a number of new options, including some that never existed before. I'm going to tell you what they are, and I'm going to tell you the one catch you need to be aware of. So Malaysia, in my opinion, one of the best value countries in the world, tax-friendly, great weather, nice people, and for years they had the #1 residence program in the world by volume. Tens of thousands of people got an MM2H. It's a residence program that allows you to live in Malaysia, but never forced you to. You could just keep it in your back pocket. It was Asia's perhaps best answer to Europe's golden visas, where you made a much smaller investment than you would in Europe. You did not have to spend time in the country. Now, you didn't get to work towards citizenship, as is par for the course in Asia, but you also, if you wanted to live in the country, had a more tax-friendly climate than in Europe. A couple of years ago, after the pandemic, Malaysia came out and dramatically raised the requirements from 300,000 ringgit for those of us under 50 in the form of a bank deposit to a 1 million ringgit bank deposit. Now, as we are recording this, 1 ringgit is about, 4.65 to the US dollar, close to 5 to the euro. And so, a million ringgit, it's a little over $200,000. So that's not a ton of money, considering you get to earn interest on that amount. You just can't take it out. And so you saw this dramatic increase in the deposit that was required. The big thing that got a lot of people upset was a dramatically increased income requirement to about 9,000 US dollars a month. And a lot of the folks who were retiring in Malaysia said, we don't have $9,000 a month. Now, if you're a nomad capitalist, you probably make $9,000 a month. You can prove that. It's relatively straightforward to prove it in Malaysia. And I would argue that for a tax-friendly residence, great weather, all the things that Malaysia offers, incredible value, putting a little over $200,000 in the bank isn't the worst thing if you already have some liquidity. Move some liquidity to a place where the banks quite possibly are safer than where your banks are. But a lot fewer people applied for MM2H, so now they're changing it. And what they're doing with this new MM2H program is a 3-tiered system: silver, gold, and platinum. And so basically you get to choose how much money you want to deposit in exchange for what benefits that you want. Now, keep in mind, this is the federal program that allows you to live anywhere that you want. If you are interested in spending a little bit of time on the Borneo part of Malaysia, Sarawak has, for example, their own MM2H program with much lower requirements, but you are going to spend some time outside of Peninsular Malaysia to maintain that. The MM2H we're talking about today is the one that allows you to live in Kuala Lumpur, Penang, as much as you like without having to go and spend any time at all in Borneo. So here's what is happening. Number one, minimum age requirement for MM2H, which did not exist until a couple of years ago, is now going from 35 down to 30. So if you're in your 20s, then Thailand still may be a better option. The Philippines may be a better option. Somewhere else in Asia may be a better option, or somewhere else anywhere, but down to 30 years old. Parents and in-laws can now be included as long as they're over 60. Children can still be included. And they're also reducing the amount of time that you need to spend in the country, which again, up until a couple of years ago, was essentially 0. Then they added a 90-day requirement. That's going to go down to 60 days, and they're going to let you kind of count that together if you're coming with a spouse. They are removing, it would appear, the requirement to have that 40,000 ringgit per month in offshore income. Now, here's how the fixed deposits are going to work. What I can tell you from personal experience is that Malaysia, and perhaps Asia in general, is a bit less formal than what you'd find in most European countries for golden visas. It's a bit less bureaucratic than what you'd find in Latin America. It's a pretty straightforward process. The goal, in my opinion, for them is to get to a yes. Once you get to that yes, you put your money in the bank. You can go to any bank that you want in Malaysia, and if they see, hey, you're part of the MM2H program now, they'll be happy to open not only a term deposit for you, but then you can generally open a current account, a checking account, to pay local bills, to add additional money. What we had this year at Nomad Capitalist Live, we had my favorite banker come and help people open accounts in anticipation of their getting MM2H. So that was a great opportunity for folks. But you've got to type the fixed deposit for as long as you're part of the program. There has been an opportunity for you to take up to half that money out for things like buying a house, and I'll come back to that in a moment. The silver tier for the new MM2H program is 500,000 Malaysian ringgit. So about 100,000 euros, about 110, 115,000 US dollars. That's going to get you a 5-year renewable permit. So back in the day, when I got into it, it was 10 years. They brought it down to 5. So now they're basically bringing down the silver tier is bringing down the deposit from the million ringgit level to the 500,000 ringgit level. And you're going to get the same 5-year term. You can then renew that. The gold level is increasing the deposit. That's a 2 million ringgit deposit. So again, 400,000 euros, 440 some, thousand US dollars. That gets you a 15-year term. So you're putting a lot more money in the bank than you would have under the current program, and a lot more than under the previous program, but you're getting the longest term they've ever given out. 15 years, you don't have to think about it for quite a long time. One of the things I like about the M2H is maintenance is pretty easy. If you get married, you could add someone on pretty easily. I mean, it's just a very lightweight program to maintain. So 15 years of a lightweight program, that's a great deal. If you have plenty of liquidity and you're willing to tie it up in the Malaysian ringgit, then you're getting a long time to stay in a tax-friendly country. Platinum. This is new, and they're doing something they've never done before with the platinum option. It's a big number. It's 5 million Malaysian ringgit. Now, you could spend 5 million ringgit and you would get a palace in Malaysia. We'll come back to the real estate part again in a minute, but 5 million ringgit in the bank, not a small amount of money. Again, about 1 million euros, 1.15 million US dollars, somewhere in that range. But here's what you're getting. For the first time ever, they're offering permanent residence. Now, there are some folks who say, show me. Malaysia is notoriously particular about granting permanent residence. That's a general trend in Asia. While Malaysia is one of the most open countries in Asia for owning land, they follow the trend where, giving away the true status of permanent residence, not an indefinite residence permit, but true permanent residence, they don't like to do that. And so some folks are saying, well, okay, let's see the first one issued. But they're saying permanent residency, you can live in Malaysia essentially as long as you want. Different countries call PR, they use the phrase PR for different things. In Europe, there are PRs that have to be renewed, for example. Malaysia's saying true permanent residency, put 5 million ringgit in the bank, and you're done. Now, you'd have to maintain that money in the bank for as long as you're under the program. And if we assume that the rules are going to be the same, where you can take out half of that money, you could take 2.5 million ringgit and buy a really, really nice property. Even in kind of the central KLCC area, if you want to be at the city center, you want to buy a condominium, that's going to buy you something that's pretty nice, especially if you're willing to buy a property that's 5 or 10 years old. If you wanted to buy what they call a landed property, what you might call a house, there's plenty of opportunities around Kuala Lumpur, around Penang. There are minimum requirements around Malaysia you have to spend. You can't just come in and buy as a foreigner a $50,000 house, even if those might be available some places. Real estate in Malaysia, because of the supply, I look at it as a lifestyle play. I think in the next 10 to 20 years, certainly Malaysia has been heading and will continue to head in the right direction. They're doing a lot of the right things. Property eventually may go up. But it is much cheaper to buy property in Malaysia than it is in any of the nearby places. I mean, compared to Bangkok, you might pay a third to a quarter the price per square meter there. Possibly faster appreciation in Bangkok. I think that market's gotten a little toppy. Even Manila has gotten rather toppy. You're going to pay 3 to 4 times per square meter what you'd pay in Malaysia. So incredibly affordable property, but not likely to go up. So if you can say, hey, I can take out part of my deposit, that's going to be, you could get an incredible property. Obviously, we've talked about, healthcare opportunities. To me, I'm just a big fan of Malaysia. And so it's interesting to see these new 3 tiers. 500,000 ringgit gets you 5 years. 2 million ringgit in the bank gets you 15 years. And they're saying, let's see what happens, 5 million ringgit gets you permanent residence. Now, I said there was a catch. And here is what they're talking about could be an issue. We're going to try this for a year. We're going to see what happens. If it goes well, if they get back to the volumes that they used to have or some semblance of that, I would imagine they would want this to keep going. They did talk about improving the quality of the due diligence. I have not seen any kind of due diligence that becomes a pain. I do think, obviously, they check people, but it's not something where Again, the bureaucracy is obsessive. But let's see how it goes. This is something that if it doesn't go as well as they want, they might change this after a year. What I've seen personally is if you're in, you're in. My rule is get your residence permits, get your bank accounts, get all your stuff, get all your Nomad Capitalist stuff set up. And more often than not, in fact, almost always, you can get grandfathered in. You can have bank accounts that you couldn't open today, but they're not going to close your account. You can get residence permits, and they'll let you stick under the same terms and conditions. And so if you are interested in permanent residence, if you're interested in long-term residence in Malaysia, this is the year to do it. Nomad Capitalist helps people get residence permits all around the world. If you're looking at just keeping it in your back pocket, you have asset diversification by putting money in a Malaysian bank. Anyone you'll talk to here who's in the know says the banks are pretty well capitalized. The government's not going to let the banks go under. So if you're looking for a place to park your money, not in US dollars, not in euros, not in British pounds, you can put it here. Obviously, the currency has gone down against those currencies in recent years. It's been flat for the last number of months. But you're taking some risk. You're also getting asset diversification. You're getting a residence permit. That's the plan B, C, D option. Malaysia's a plan A. Great healthcare. A lot of people ask about that. Incredibly affordable healthcare at incredibly high quality. Tax-friendly country, now better than neighboring Thailand as of 2024 in terms of tax friendliness. And I would say for those of you who are tired of living in countries where the government is increasingly bearing down on you, very much a light touch. Not saying there's not enforcement, but it's done with a light touch. And I think especially if you're a foreigner here, you'll be treated very well. And so that's who might be interested in a Malaysian residence permit. What we help people do here is figure out, okay, if you move to Malaysia, how do you stop paying taxes where you live now? How do you start paying taxes there? Or, basically not paying taxes as you may legally be allowed to do. What citizenships do you need? Because you're not going to be getting citizenship in Malaysia. Do you want other residence permits? Are you a part-time resident in Malaysia? And do you want a residence permit somewhere else to go and spend a different part of the year? We can help you figure out your legal tax reduction, where you live over the course of the year, and the residences and citizenships that fuel that, the citizenship that makes sure that you are protected, because a lot of Western citizenships are becoming more of a liability these days. That's what we help people do. It's holistic offshore planning. Keep more of your money, build your freedom. For me, Malaysia personally is a component for that, with incredibly affordable housing, healthcare, and just a great place to live. And so this is one that you'll definitely want to look at, and we'll be talking to our clients about.